Hi, I'm the Beauty Professor, and you can find my beauty blog at www.beautyprofessor.net. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial featuring the Kanebo Sensai Cellular Performance Cream Foundation. It's a lot of words for a single item. At any rate, I use it in CF22, which is Natural Beige, and I have tried this foundation for a few weeks before I felt like I was adequately experienced to weigh in on it. Now I'm excited to share my findings with you. Being the foundation fanatic that I am, I try a lot of foundations, and in this case I am really pleased with my experience with the Sensai. In this video I'll show you how I like to apply this foundation, and I'll also give you my observations and final findings regarding its performance in general and how it measures up next to other foundations that I love and use frequently. So right now I do have a little bit of makeup on my face. I am currently wearing the Le Métier de Beauté Peau Vierge in number 2, which is always my unequivocally guaranteed base when I am getting ready each day. I can't say enough good things about this as a primer and a moisturizer and an illuminator, and also as a skincare element. It does contain retinols, so it is just an amazing product overall. And I also, on my lips, am wearing the By Terry Rouge Terribly Shimmer Lipstick in Love Me Tender. I recently featured this on my blog as 4 top products that one can embrace for summertime. It's a beautiful kind of shimmery apricot shade. And on top of that, I have just a touch of the Tom Ford lip color in Nude Vanilla, just to tone it down a touch and give it kind of a creamy element. Onto the foundation. So first things first, this foundation retails for around $80, which is definitely an investment in the foundation land. I picked this up at Neiman Marcus. The Kanebo Sensai line originates in Japan, and it focuses on high-end skincare options as well as some very carefully curated makeup choices. They have a beautiful makeup line, but I would say that it's fairly limited in scope. They have foundation and lip color and blush, some powder, mascara, but it's not like they're releasing new collections for each season. At least in America. Maybe perhaps overseas they have more temporal collections, but here it's just kind of like a standard makeup offering. There are 2 foundations in the Sensai line. I've used them both. One I used a couple of summers ago, and that was a fluid foundation. It comes in a pump bottle. This is, as I said, the cream foundation. And to show you, you've got a nice jar with a screw on top, stopper on the top, and then the foundation. And I've actually decanted some. It's not like I've gone through this much, but I gave some samples to some friends, and I also decant some for myself, and I keep it in a sample jar so that I can work with it more comfortably, so I'm not digging into the jar on a regular basis. So to give you some adjectives that describe this foundation, I will do my best right now to kind of be succinct about it, because I could talk on and on about foundation. This is SPF 15, so it does have some minor UV protection. If I was going to be out in the sun for any period of time, I would definitely be wearing a 30 underneath any makeup, and that typically is the Kogundo UV Care Milk, which I love. Also, it's very hydrating. It says it has a 50% moisture content, and certainly I feel that when I'm applying it to my face. Sometimes cream foundations, oddly enough, can be rather drying in nature, and this certainly is the opposite or antithesis of that. Definitely not drying, which is wonderful. So the moisture content really comes through. It intends to help reduce the stresses on the skin, so it has some ingredients that I think help to fight free radicals and has some anti-aging properties. And then finally, and I think most significant of this foundation, it intends to create a second skin layer when it's applied. And truly, even though it doesn't claim to be high definition, I find this to be a very high definition foundation. It's very imperceptible to the naked eye if it's been applied correctly and sparingly. So it really melds into the skin once it's been applied, and it stays that way all day without separating or getting patchy or flaky. That is its most impressive quality as far as I'm concerned. It just makes your skin look dewy and beautiful, but it doesn't degrade to an oily mess. I've experimented with a myriad of approaches when it comes to applying this foundation, and the process that I'm about to show you is what I find to be the most preferable. It gives the best results. So I am going to go ahead and just take my foundation here, and I'll be working with a beauty blender. I was very late to the beauty blender party, despite loving makeup and having written about it seriously for the last year and a half on my blog. I never really felt compelled to try one of these, and then on a whim I bought a couple a few months ago, and I can't stop using them. In this case, I prefer using the beauty blender over a brush. I think it gives the best finish, and it really just works in tandem with the purpose of this foundation, which is to give a skin-like finish so that you actually get that in the end. I'm going to take my beauty blender and I'm going to go ahead and give it a spritz of the Evian Broom Mystère. It's just water in a little aerosol can. But I prefer it to using tap because I feel like I'm getting less chemicals on my skin. Then I'll go ahead and take some of the foundation like this, and this may be all I need to finish my whole face. It's very pigmented foundation. And if you over apply it, that would be counterproductive to the aim of the foundation, which is to look like real skin. Just the best version. All right, I've put 4 dots of foundation, and now I'm going to go ahead and blend. You can see how it's just evening out everything so nicely. When I wear foundation, my chief objective is to cover freckles and just unevenness on my skin. And this process works to make that a reality. All right, so that full face was achieved by just the amount of product you saw on my sponge here. Natural Beige as a shade is a perfect N20 to 25 / NC20 to 25 beige shade for light skin tones. I find that it matches my skin perfectly. I do not get a line of demarcation, and it does not oxidize over time. Now, if I were to finish this look with this foundation, I would do 2 things. I'd add a little bronzer and a little blush. Not because I couldn't just go like this, but because I prefer to kind of wrap it up. So the bronzer that I'll be working with right now is one I've used many times over in my videos. It's the Guerlain Terracotta 4 Seasons in Nude 00. And I'm just going to use a touch. I like kind of going low maintenance when I use this foundation because it has such a beautiful finish. You don't need a lot of additional cosmetics. So I'm just adding a little bit of bronzer in the areas I normally would, which would be cheekbones, down the bridge of the nose, a little bit up here, and along my jawline. And then a little pink right here on the apples of my cheeks. All right, now if I wanted to do something special, and I've been doing this lately, I'm working with a product that I covered on my blog a few days ago as well, and that is the Le Métier de Beauté Cream Fresh Tint for Lip and Cheek. It comes in a little screw-on pot like this. It looks like this. This shade is Mystique, and it's a beautiful kind of pink with some lavender undertones. You can see it right there, and I have better swatches of it on my blog as I speak. So I'm going to use a little bit on the apple of my cheeks to add some luminosity, a little bit of dewiness, and certainly a slight flush. I'm using a flat brush that I picked up. It's an e.l.f. powder brush, but I'm using it kind of in a stippling way. In this case, it was incredibly inexpensive. I got it at Target, kind of branched out beyond my typical 3 brushes that I usually use. And I find it works great with a product such as this. So I'm just going to get a little bit on the brush. And then stipple it onto my cheeks in the apple area. Even though this is a very pale color, I suppose if you put a copious amount on, you could overdo it, just because it's got so many dimensions going on. It's luminous, it's pink, but there you go. You can see where it's been added. You can see the final effect when I sit back here. And then certainly I would follow up with doing my eyes, some shadow and some mascara, but in this case I'll save you that process. Now in terms of a finishing powder, I typically don't powder this foundation once it's been applied because I feel like it just messes or it just interferes with the skin-like finish that I've achieved by putting it on in the first place. But for touch-ups, I have been using one of two things, either my Serge Lutens Teint Fine, which is this right here, and that would be in 040. I also have been using the NARS Light Reflecting Pressed Powder in Translucent or Crystal. Both powders are great for touching up this particular foundation and maybe removing any unwanted shine. So to give you my final thoughts on this particular foundation, I am finding myself grabbing for the Kanebo Sensai Cellular Performance Cream Foundation in Natural Beige very frequently because it has great medium coverage, it has a beautiful skin-like finish, and even when I get close to the camera, it's very difficult to detect where that foundation has been applied. And even though it's dewy, it lasts a significant part of the day. In my experience, 8 to 10 hours without any kind of major touch-ups, save for a bit of powder, perhaps once or twice. It works great with combination skin, which mine is. I would think that drier skin types would just absorb the moisture like crazy, and combination skin like mine is not bothered by that additional moisture, which I appreciate. My skin feels balanced all day long, and when I remove the foundation it is in good shape. I have not had a single breakout or irritation issue from this foundation, and it's not fragranced as far as I can ascertain. No, it does not have any kind of perceptible fragrance, so that's a definite benefit. And finally, yes, this foundation is an investment. Certainly it's expensive, but because it has some skincare properties, I'm kind of thinking of it as a dual purposed entity. With that in mind, I highly recommend the Kanebo Sensai Cream Foundation, and as far as I can tell, it can really only be purchased at the Kanebo counter at Neiman Marcus. And even with an extensive online search, I couldn't find it anywhere but Neiman's. So it's a little bit difficult to get one's hands on, at least domestically here in America. But it's definitely worth it if you're looking for a skincare enriched, medium coverage foundation with one of the most beautiful finishes I have ever encountered in the almost 100 foundations I've tried over the last few years. I hope you found this review and tutorial helpful, and I look forward to your questions and your comments on this particular product. As always, please don't forget to visit me at my blog, Beauty Professor, which can be found at www.beautyprofessor.net. Take care.